So, hi Jane, good evening, and it's a complete pleasure to be hosting you today. And thank you for agreeing for this interview and giving us the opportunity to bring to light working Safari Eye. So, on the special occasion of World Refugee Month. So, since we have so much to talk about in such limited period of time, we have curated certain questions that would make this interview really easy to navigate. So, if it's okay, can I start with the first question?
Yes, and good evening to you, afternoon to you, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my first question is, why do you think it's important to celebrate the World Refugee Day?
I think it's important to draw attention, if there's any opportunity to draw attention to the refugee issue around the world. I think that's an important thing. I mean, for a group like us, every day is World Refugee Day. So it's just an occasion when you can highlight it, if you like. I'm not sure that the word celebrate is quite the right word, but mark it and note it. There are things to celebrate, but I think being a refugee is perhaps not a great celebration. But the work you can do and see the results of the work that many refugees do is certainly something to be celebrated. So.
Perfect. And I think you said it correctly that it's something not to be celebrated, but to be remembered and to be, like you said, market so that people do not forget. There are people out there who have lost their homes and are in foreign lands. So I would like to know, how does REI help in this cause and help the refugees?
We are supporting, I think that's probably the better word. Basically, REI, Refugee Empowerment International, funds projects that enable the people in the projects to rebuild. So our funds are directed at providing opportunities that enable people to become empowered or re-empowered, if you like, because a lot of the people that we are supporting already have skills and talents. What they want is the opportunity to use those skills and talents for themselves and for the people around them. So our work is non-interventional. It's supporting through funding and funding projects which are run by the communities, for the communities, and to ensure that that will make an impact and a sustainable impact, because those people will be there for as long as they need to be. So they will ensure that it's something that the efforts will bring back dignity, if you like, bring back a feeling of self-respect and allow people to have some control over their lives, because refugees and internally displaced people have lost control of their lives through no fault of their own, and all they want to do is get back some normality.
And what do you think, how do you think, if I may reframe the question, how do you think the world refugee crisis affects the world economy?
Hugely. How do it? Because it costs money. I mean, it is upsetting markets, it's upsetting communities. A lot of aid has to go to, especially to the emergency time. A whole lot of aid is going in to provide people support and relief when the crises first erupt. And then the camps and the areas have to be supported by international aid. So that is costing a lot of money and therefore severely affecting the world economy, because that money probably would be better off in development, except that is a form of development. So it's costly, and conflict is costly. And the majority of people have fled because of conflict. So overall, there's a big effect on the world economy. And therefore, the important thing is to enable the groups to return something to the economy. So I can turn that question into a positive result if the refugees and internally displaced people are allowed to work and are allowed to be productive that will balance things. It will help the local economies and has been proven to do so.
Perfectly said. Like you mentioned that conflicts are expensive, wars are expensive, and the effects of it are felt on every single life, be it the refugees, be it the people who are staying at home, and that should just not happen in the first place. So, what do you think are the steps that are taken by the UN to protect the refugees and to ensure that uh, things like this do not happen?
That is such a big question. It is a huge question. The UN they're such a big organization, and actually so far removed from what we are doing in terms of our funding. We are supporting groups, small community groups on the ground, and our work is not very involved with the UN at all. So the UN is the UN. It's controlled a lot by governments because of their funding. A lot of that is from governments, and their hands are tied. In some places, they cannot operate as much as they want to because of the local rules. I don't think I can answer that question. There's so much the UN could do, but in so many instances, they're not allowed to do it. So I'm not in a position to answer that in any depth. We don't come into contact with the UN very much on our visits, and the community programs don't have much to do with the UN either. Sorry to dodge the question. It's very political, isn't it?
I can completely understand. That is not at all a problem. And like we come across so many stories, so many refugee stories that are really shivering and really mind-boggling. So I'm really sure that when it comes to organizations like REI, they help so many people around them. So there must be something positive that comes out of it. So if you know of any positive story that's out there, we would really like to know about it.
Oh, we know lots. I mean, we're all about good news, because that's how our funding works. The funding the projects which give people an opportunity, and those beneficiaries go on to make something of their lives and to give back. So yes, we have quite a lot of. We're all full of good stories, and how people are able to build something. I can think of Karenni refugees who have received training in leadership, human rights, care of the environment, a course that we support in the Karenni camp on the Thai-Myanmar border. And the beneficiaries that we meet, they come and tell us what they're doing, how they have gone back into their communities to share their knowledge, to have people understand non-violent activism, how to understand the environment, how to teach their fellows about their rights and their human rights, as to what they can achieve. And they're so excited to tell us, because they're so excited to have a role in the community. We fund a project in Nairobi for people who are they're not in camps and therefore having to make their own way and want to find jobs and so on. And one story comes from a man I met a few years ago, Rwandan man, who had done the training for business training and set up how to set up his own company. And he was doing something very simple, like selling secondhand shoes. He gave me the figures, how much he was earning, how much his costs were. And I asked him what a difference that made to his life. And he just grinned at me and said, I don't have to borrow from my neighbors anymore. It's a simple thing, it's dignity. And he was so happy to have that opportunity. We have a lot more stories like that. I could go on, and often do. But if people would like to hear about our stories, we do have some of them on our website, and we've got lots more to share.
That was just so sweet. So I had one curiosity. Are there any differences in refugees from different places? And like we have war refugees, we have refugees out of economic crisis, we have refugees because of natural disasters, we have refugees because of internal disturbances. So if you know if there's any difference between these refugees, or it's just the same throughout.
There is some difference. In the initial stage, it's the same for everyone. They need the relief, they need the emergency support immediately. Obviously, people from natural disasters, they probably have more chance of support from the local authorities and possibly insurance, because people can get insurance for acts like that in their own country. I mean, I live in Japan, and Japan has quite a few natural disasters, and people do have a degree of insurance against that, and the government do have measures in place to handle that. But when it comes to refugee from persecution, conflict, or whatever, they don't have that sort of protection, and really are left on their own and very much reliant on international aid at the emergency stage. Obviously, they want to go on and build for themselves later. So there's those kinds of differences. But in the end, it's traumatic. People have lost so much, and that is something which is common throughout any kind of displacement.
Absolutely correct. And what kinds of aid, if somebody wants to help, if an outsider wants to help, what kind of thing can he or she do for these refugees, or for the organization who are working for these refugees?
Tell people about them. Tell people, find out the organizations that they like, that are doing what they say they're doing. Check them out, tell more people about them, get familiar with the issue, and instruct people on what they can learn from it, how that people can be, what we can learn from them as well. I think that is a very important thing. People are often surprised that we can learn from refugees, incredibly hardworking people, very resilient, ready to face the challenges that come. Even in COVID, we noted that the projects that we're supporting, the people just got on with it. They continued the projects because they've been empowered, obviously, but it was just like, this is one more challenge we have to face. So understanding the situation and sharing it with other people so that they get to know about it, and supporting it, becoming regular donors. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but you could become a friend and a regular member of a donor club, things like that. So that is a very important part. Relief is different, but we're also talking about 100 million people who've been displaced around the world, and a lot of them are in forgotten situations, and they're there for decades. So to remember them as well as the latest crisis, I think, is a very important thing.
My next question, we'll be moving towards the end of the interview, and I wanted to know what has been your personal driving force to work for this cause, if it's okay for you to share.
It's fine. I joined the organization in 2000. I didn't have a lot of experience at the time of refugees specifically. I had quite a lot of long-term experience of community work and so on. And when I first went out to the refugee communities to establish priorities and so on, I was just so impressed. I expected to find, a lot of hardship and difficulty, but I found so much positivity, so much ambition to overcome the situation. And so obviously a lot of these people have become friends now, and I've known quite a few of the projects for years. I come back from every visit inspired, truly inspired by what people are doing with so little and what determination will get you through. And it makes me very much appreciate what we have. So that's what keeps me going. I am truly inspired by them. I know it sounds like a trite thing to say, but it really is absolutely true.
I can completely understand the adrenaline rush you get from seeing such enthusiastic, vibrant, and resilient people, and it's just amazing. So, Jane, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview and shedding light on the way refugees have been living and the way the challenges that they face every day. And if you have any questions for us, we'll be really happy to help.
No, but thank you for highlighting this through Goodera and bringing it to the attention of the many people who are looking at your sites and so on, and your contacts. So it's great to share it, and for people to understand that the myths around refugees are completely ill-founded. It's quite a different story when you get to know the situation.